Set by Gossage. A high drive and deep to right field. It is gone. 3-run home run by George Brett into the third tier of Yankee Stadium. And Brett has taken the Royals and put them in front. Here in the seventh inning. The Royals now lead it 4-2. And a stunned crowd here at Yankee Stadium in New York as Brett being patted on the back by Gordy McKenzie and the welcoming party at home plate as the Royals lead by a pair of runs.
That is the most famous home run that George Brett ever hit off Goose Gossage at Yankee Stadium. Welcome to Crafty in the Call. My name is Josh Suchon, play-by-play announcer for the Albuquerque Isotopes.
And my name is Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, broadcaster with the Lansing Lugnuts. And it wasn't. There was another one, Josh. There's another home run. George Brett hit off a Goose Gossage at Yankee Stadium that might have been more famous.
Really? Why would it be more famous?
Well, it did happen in a regular season game. I'll give you that. It didn't determine anything necessarily postseason oriented, but it certainly did draw the eyes of the nation, and it's still talked about to this day. And it's going to lead us into a real fun conversation. And it all has to do with just a little bit too much pine tar.
It's gone. And now the Royals have the one-run lead. George Brett has just homered, and Billy Martin and the Yankees want the bat. Look at Martin.
Well, what they're talking about, Frank, is that he's got too much pine tar, and you've got to have a certain amount of distance from the trademark of the bat and the pine tar.
And Nettles is leaving the field as if the game is over. No, he's just coming in.
I'm not sure. They might have a legitimate gripe. And the umpires are going to get together. George Brett looking around and wanting to know what's going on. And the umpires are going to get together and talk about this thing.
Well, Billy Martin bounced right out of the dugout.
I've seen it called before, Frank. You are not allowed to have a substance of any kind above the trademark. And I can't tell from here because everybody's huddled around the bat. I cannot tell from here if it's up too far. And now they're feeling it. See, as if there's some sticky stuff around there.
That's Nick Bremigan with the bat.
This is going to be an interesting call.
Well, Brett isn't sure whether he has a home run yet or not.
Now the umpires are going to walk away and talk about this and go over the rules and examine the bat. See where the pine tar, see the label, the trademark is?
Yep.
See the brown substance there?
It does look like it's...
That's pine tar.
It looks like it is.
Now you are not allowed to have that pine tar up that far on the bat. Billy Martin walking around waiting for the, which might be an important decision.
First time in a long time I've seen the umpires huddle this long and have a meeting over it.
Well, they're going to see what's going to happen. They're going
to... Now that is the plate umpire, Tim McClellan, with the bat in his hand. Now they're going to measure it across home plate.
Well, I've never seen this.
I never have either.
I don't know what they're measuring. They might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, the Yankees win it. He's out.
Yes, sir.
Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out.
And he's steaming mad.
He is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan. And the Yankees have won the ball game 4-3. Brett is called out for using an illegal bat or with the illegal substance on the bat.
Like I said, I have seen this before, Frank, and Gaylord Perry just took the bat away from home plate umpire Jim McClellan. He's going to take the bat. They're going to take it so they cannot take it into the American League office or wherever they take it to be examined.
Well, the Yankees security person and one of the umpires quickly are chasing whoever has the bat. Jose Martinez is holding Brett. Bobby, I've never seen this in my life.
Well, I've seen players called out for using an illegal bat, but never so an important hit by a home run and then been called out to put the Royals ahead. George Brett was fighting mad, and whether he has a cause to be mad or not, I don't have any idea. The umpires made a decision.
Bobby, let me say this to you. The fact that they tried to take the bat away and secrete the bat lends credence to the umpire's call, in my estimation.
What a great point, isn't that?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that is Frank Messer and Bobby Mercer, who are the broadcasters there. That is Yankees television on that date in 1983.
George Brett is 30 years old. Tim McClelland, the home plate umpire, standing 6 feet 6 inches tall, is 31, and he is in his first year in the American League. And I think one of the things that elevates this moment, not only is it at Yankee Stadium, so it's in New York and all these eyes are on it, it's the camera shot with the back of McClelland looking right at the Royals dugout, hand out, and then you see the Brett charge.
I would also say a few other things about what made this most famous, and I'm glad you started with that. 1983 is a time in history where not every game is televised just yet. SportsCenter has begun. Not everyone has ESPN, so you have access to highlights, and there's a whole lot more of these like national shows that start popping up. If you're watching your local news, sports would get maybe 5 minutes on Sunday. This was a Sunday afternoon, so everybody could lead with this. There was these like 30-minute syndicated shows that started to show up around the country. George Michael would be the host. He pressed this button, and here comes the highlight of this funny moments in sports history. And so all of the timing came together. Plus, you've got George Brett, who's, if not the most famous baseball player at the time, he's certainly top 5, right? He flirted with 400 3 years earlier when he led the Royals to the World Series and was the most valuable player. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated and Time Magazine. He had this famous thing about the hemorrhoids in 1980, which made him a laughing stock. He would later say that the best part about the pine tar is that people forgot about the hemorrhoids from the 1980 World Series. So all of these things came together. Plus, you've got Billy Martin, this character. And the pine tar incident to this day is something that lives on. I can never get enough watching the reaction and looking back on this, Jesse.
So Frank Messer and Bobby Mercer, I thought that the way that they called this was with great patience. We've got the home run. Then we've got the umpires immediately with Billy Martin. Billy Martin has come right out to talk to Tim McClelland, and they've got the bat. The bat boy didn't get out there in time to take the bat away. And now the umpires are all conferring. So we've got our conference. Now let's measure the bat. You can't exceed 18 inches. Home plate's width is 17 inches. It is really easy to see all of this, that we stay right through it as Bobby and Frank are figuring things out. I find very compelling.
No disrespect to Frank Messer, but I thought his home run call was terrible.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
But it's a Yankees home TV call, right? It's
fair. Yeah,
great.
Absolutely. And they've seen George Brett hit home runs off Goose Gossage before. It does make me wonder whether or not the broadcasters had been talking to Billy Martin and whether Billy had this in his back pocket. The fact that they immediately knew, it made me wonder if they had been thinking about this and Billy Martin had told them about it, if some sort of conversation had taken place, that Billy was waiting for the perfect time. At one point, Bobby Mercer says, I've seen this before. This is the incident. It is with Thurman Munson, 1975. It's really hard to read, but basically Thurman Munson says in there, I didn't know that it was even a rule. Thurman Munson had used a bat that someone had given him that had been given him. And Thurman Munson was called out for using a bat that had too much pine tar on it. Again, it's really hard to see. So this had happened. It was 1975. It was just before Billy Martin had taken over as manager. So maybe Billy was watching the games, reading about it. Again, this was 5 years earlier, and Billy Martin had remembered this, or someone had remembered it. Certainly Bobby Mercer had remembered this 5 years earlier. And so it was not the first time that this had happened involving the Yankees.
This is a marvelous piece by Steve Jacobson. So to read, Rule 6.06D, as defined by Rule 1.10 in parentheses 2B, the batter is out after hitting a fair ball if there's a foreign substance within 18 inches of the heavy end of the bat. France measured it against a 17-inch width of the plate. Munson, who had never heard of the rule, measured and found only 13 inches clean. No argument. Great quotes from Thurman Munson, but there's the precedent with a very prominent Yankee. What a way to set the stage.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the Pine Tar incident was not over. There was, it went for a long, long time. I'm going to simply read what Retro Sheet writes about basically what happened, because it might be the fastest way in order to kind of get to it. The Royals protested the game. On July 28th, the ruling was reversed by American League President Lee MacPhail, who ordered that the game resume from this point. The game was completed on August 18th, an off day for both teams, beginning at 6:05 p.m.
And just to paraphrase why Lee MacPhail upheld the home run, Pine Tar doesn't help a batter hit a home run. It's something that has always stuck with me. I remember reading. We make the rules. The rules don't make us. And so to understand it, Lee MacPhail referred to the spirit of the rules. And Billy Martin scoffed at that. But I would say, yes, this is a spirit of the rules things. Okay, you don't want Pine Tar up and down the bat. There's a reason for that. But it's not to stop a batter from hitting home runs. If Pine Tar was something that would help a batter hit home runs, we're just trying to get a good grip. It's a beautiful thing, and in a very ugly, sticky manner.
And it became sticky with courts. It wasn't just the American League. There was a judge in New York who had to make a decision. The Royals are flying to New York, and they don't know for sure what's going to happen. I want to say it was around 3:45 in the afternoon that the judge in New York said, play the game. It should be continued. Basically, we're not going to get involved in this. It's the American League's office to decide this. And the drama was not done, though, even once it was time to restart the game. Let's go now to the Royals radio. We're going to hear Fred White's voice first, and then Denny Matthews, WIBW, Royals radio.
National anthem from Yankee Stadium, and I think they must have compromised. The game isn't going to start at 6, and it's not going to start at 6:15. It's going to start in about a minute or two here. George Maloney will be behind the plate when we resume. And the Yankees, well, I don't know what the Yankees are doing. Ron Guidry's in center field. Don Mattingly is playing second base left-handed. I don't want to say that Billy's not going to take this thing real seriously, but I'm not sure that this is at all what George had in mind when he battled so hard to get all this done today. Ron Guidry's playing center field for New York. George Frazier is on the mound. And there's a left-handed second baseman, Don Mattingly, playing second base right now. Hal McRae is at the plate with 2 out, and he will be facing George Frazier. So Rich Gossage, who worked 4 innings yesterday, is now being relieved. The Yankees are changing pitchers. Dan Quisenberry is warming up in the bullpen. The Royals have a 5-4 lead. And the thing about Ron Guidry playing center field, the Yankees just may have their best center fielder out there right now. He might be the best center fielder on his club. He is a tremendous outfielder, but he has never played there in the big leagues before. He's about to now. So we're set to resume this game. We are in the top of the 9th. George Brett has hit the 2-run homer. It now stands. It looks like we'll get the game in weather-wise. Hal McRae's at the plate. 2 out. Royals up 5-4. Here's Denny.
Okay, Fred, do you remember what Hal McRae has done in this game? Think back now. Without looking at your score sheet.
Now, I'll tell you what he's going to do. He told me on the plane, I am going to go up there and kick up some dust and get some great, great riff. I am not going up there and get cheated.
Well, now that he sees Don Mattingly out there at second base, he might be inclined to punch the ball toward right field.
Max 0 for 3.
You're right. He's grounded to third, flied to center, bounced into a double play, and drawn a base on ball. Frazier is going to work from the stretch position. And now they're going to appeal that somebody, as they rounded first base on the home run, missed first base. And now they're going to appeal that somebody, as they made their way around the bases, missed second base, I do believe. Oh, you're kidding. Now, Billy is going to say, well, how do these umpires know? The umpires who were officiating the game 3 weeks ago weren't even here. Now they're going to appeal to second base. And Dave Phillips, the umpire out there, says, nope, everything is all right there. And now Billy Martin is going to have a little meeting with Dave Phillips. And now Billy is saying to Dave, well, how do you know he didn't miss first base? You weren't even here. And Dave is saying, yeah, but I talked to the other 4 umpires, and they told me that everybody touched the base they were supposed to touch.
You know what they're flirting with, Denny? There's a rule in the rule book about making a farce of the game. And I'm going to say right now that the Yankees have probably done about enough, that they've got everybody just about disgusted enough, that they just might be very close to saying, we're going to invoke a rule here on you, fella.
Well, Billy Martin has had 3 weeks to think about this, all the different little ploys that could be used to influence the outcome of the game, and we saw it Brett on the afternoon when he went out to protest that the bat that George Brett used to hit the home run was illegal. So having had 3 weeks to sit on it, I am sure that he has perused the rule book very thoroughly, and he will use everything that he can think of
They're protesting
to the Yankee advantage.
I think what we've got now is the Yankee protest.
George Maloney, who's back of the plate, is indicating that the game is being played under protest. Now, what is the basis of that protest? That's what I'd like to know. Al McRae, while all that was going on, went back to the on-deck circle. And now he once again approaches the batter's box. Now George Frazier getting ready. Here's the windup in the pitch. It's a strike. Just to refresh your memory, the Royals scored a run in the second, a run in the fourth, a run in the sixth, and 2 now here in the ninth. Breaking ball is low. The Yankees scored 1 in the second. They scored 3 in the sixth. So the Yankees had a 4-3 lead when the Royals came to bat in the top of the ninth. And then with the bases empty and 2 out, UL Washington singled. And then it was Brett hitting the home run. 1-1 pitch to Hal McRae is high and outside. 2 balls and 1 strike. Amos Otis would be next if Hal McRae can get aboard here. Here's the 2-1 pitch. Fouled out of play, and the count is now evened out at 2 balls and 2 strikes. I wonder how many times a left-hander has played second base in the big leagues. Two balls, 2 strikes on Hal McRae. George Frazier taking the sign from his catcher, Butch Weiniger. Here's the 2-2 pitch. Foul back to the screen. Ron Guidry playing center field. Winfield in left, Steve Kemp in right. Ken Griffey, who was on the disabled list, back on the 24th of July, is at first base. Breaking ball, a swing and a miss, and Hal McRae strikes out, and the inning is over. So the Royals get 2 runs on 2 hits. Nobody left on base. We go now to the bottom of the ninth. The Royals 5, the Yankees 4.
Okay, Jesse. So, few things that I really enjoy about that clip of Denny Matthews and Fred White was the background on what a great athlete Ron Guidry was, how he might be their best center fielder. Going back to it, mentioning they were wondering when was the last time that a left-hander had played second base. I'm almost positive that the current answer to that question was that time when Don Mattingly is playing second base as a left-hander. I also think we needed a pitch timer back then. I enjoyed just to refresh your memory about the game, and even saying like this is starting to become a farce of what Billy Martin is doing. And so I think that Denny and Fred were outstanding here in this moment.
We're in agreement. And by the way, it was an intended farce by Billy Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he could think of. How about the umpires being ready for the appeals? So I'm reading Bruce Slutsky's Sabre summary of everything that went on. And Bob Fischel is the executive vice president of the American League. They got an affidavit from the umpiring crew on July 24th that said that, yes, all the bases had been touched by George Brett and UL Washington. They were ready for Billy Martin to appeal at every single base and say, there's no way you guys knew that he touched all those bases. They were prepared for Billy and Billy's ultra competitiveness and his different wiles. And then Billy is just out there trying to figure out what he can do to make this all absurd. So 1,245 people in attendance, $1 for a bleacher seat, $2.50 for general admission, unless you had a rain check from the July 24th game. I loved the summary at the end of the inning. It's a strikeout. So 2 runs on 2 hits. The world's longest inning. It's so good. Yeah, I agree. What a well-called half inning.
What was the quantity of fans that were there again?
I've got 1,245. And reading Bruce, quote unquote, the Yankees estimated that playing the game cost them $25,000.
So we first were listening to that. It sounded like more than 1,200 fans. That sounded like 20,000 fans. So those who were there were really loud and into it.
I mean, they embraced the absurdity of the moment. As you said, we've got a superstar versus superstar involved. We've got the emotions. We've got the TV. We've got the court cases. How much did the Yankees spend on court expenses? Yeah, wow, what an atmosphere for something that, in all, took less than 10 minutes.
So in terms of like, why did it matter so much? At the time, the Yankees were in 4th place. However, they were 1.5 games behind Toronto and Baltimore. The Royals were in 3rd place. They were 1.5 games behind the White Sox and the Rangers. So both teams were in contention. Neither team ended up making the playoffs. And so, it's late July. Every game matters. And for Billy Martin, doesn't matter what the standings are. He's going to fight like he can. But nonetheless, that's additional context in terms of what was at stake and why Billy was taking it so serious.
Well, the Royals were in the World Series in 1980, and then they won the World Series in 1985. The Yankees were in the World Series in 1981. They had won the World Series in 77, 78, and they had some great battles in the 1970s. The Royals-Yankees rivalry was real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Yankees had beaten them multiple times in the American League Championship Series in order to get to the World Series, which is what made the home run by George Brett in 1980, which we showed to start off the episode. That turned the tide. That was the ultimate dagger for the Royals to say, no, we have finally beaten you. We have beaten your best reliever in your stadium. Our superstar hit this home run, and they're off to the World Series.
Let me add this too. This struck me as we're talking about this, because this has captured the imagination of the baseball-loving nation and the nation. And it's still got staying power to this day among baseball people, Kansas City people, New York people, the Pine Tar Bat game. Do you remember earlier this season when Ernie Clement of the Blue Jays redefined the baseline against the Orioles?
Tell me more, because I remember this, but not as well as you.
Okay, there was a tag, and Clement ran way out of the way to avoid this tag, and the throw went to first base, and the umpire said, safe, and said that there had not been actually enough of a tag, and so the baseline is defined when there's actually a tag attempt made. And this set up a tremendous debate among baseball fans about this rule. Then you just had Pete Crow Armstrong, I'm not sure if you've seen this play, stolen a base attempt and it's on ball 4. So as he's sliding in, throw goes down, tag is slapped down, and Armstrong disconnects from the base, touches the base, and then separates from the base. The tag stays on him. He's out at second on a walk. There are still these technical interpretations of baseball rules that I think baseball people love to go crazy at from one side or the other. And this is it. Everybody is arguing about pine tar.
And let's look back on Yankees TV as this game continues.
Because you were not here.
That's right. They cannot officially, I don't think they can officially give him a ruling because they were not here, so they didn't see it. Now, the last umpires that were here before this, before the original game was Tim McClellan. He was behind the plate, Drew Coble, Nick Brimmigan, and Joe Brinkman. And those 4 gentlemen are not here tonight. This is a new umpiring crew. So Billy Martin is out there, I assume, making a protest, saying, look, we're saying that Brett missed the bases.
I have an idea that Dave Phillips right there, Bobby, may have a sworn affidavit from one of the umpires of the other crew. Of course, the umpires and the league office, if we knew this was going to happen, I'm sure they knew it was going to happen. So we add just a little more drama to the infamous pine tar game.
We might not be through yet. We might have a couple more.
Well, a handful of people here at Yankee Stadium. Of course, the judge did not rule until about 4:15 this afternoon, the final ruling that the game would be played.
Well, I would assume now
it's being played under protest.
Right.
We just got the sign. There it is, the peace sign from the plate umpire, in this case, George Maloney, that Billy Martin has protested this ball game.
Undoubtedly, that was not a sworn affidavit by the other umpire.
Well, I don't think any of us are surprised that Billy did that or the Yankees did that.
No. He would have a right to do that because this is a different umpiring crew. And there's the crowd here tonight, all 34 of them. Billy Martin just returned back to the dugout after making that protest. So maybe sometime we will get this first pitch underway.
What do you guess we'll get this game finished? Finally out of the books.
Tell everybody
I'm going to skim ahead here now to the bottom of the 9th inning. So we saw the television part of that. Let's get to this is another
walk, fly center and grounded into a double play.
This might be the shortest televised game that you've ever done, though.
Out of play. Not if we count the first 9 innings.
I mean, in one particular day. I'm not going to get technical, please.
Hey, there's the Royals bench.
That might be the replacements for, we might mention that George Brett and Rocky Colavito and Gaylord Perry are not here tonight. They were ejected from the ball game and suspended from this game, so they are not here tonight. Dick Counser also is not in uniform. He was ejected too.
If McRae gets a base hit, he'll have a 15-game hitting streak. Just for the books. I'll tell you, one of the owners of the Kansas City Royals is here watching the ball game. Avron Fogelman, who bought 49% of the stock from Ewing Kaufman earlier this year. Billy Martin, the Yankee skipper. Colavito and Perry are on their way to Baltimore. Struck him out, and that retires the side. In the top half of the 9th inning, the Royals scored 2 runs on 2 hits. There were no Yankee errors, and nobody left on base. In the middle of the 9th, 5 Kansas City, 4 the Yankees. The announcement was made that the 4 umpires who were here for the original game, McClellan, Coble, Brinkman, and Bremigan, did sign a notarized affidavit stating that George Brett touched every base on his home run.
Well, I guess we've covered all the legal ramifications of this ball game.
Well, do you reckon we have or not?
I don't know. If we don't, we'll find out later.
All right, here's the catcher. He is Don Slott. And the pitcher is supposed to be Mike Armstrong, but that is Quisenberry.
Yeah.
They had announced that Armstrong would start, but Quisenberry is on the mound. There's a lot of drama around the first Yankee hitter. Don Mattingly will lead off the bottom half of the ninth inning. If Mattingly should get a base hit, Bobby Mercer, he will establish a new record for consecutive game hitting streak for a rookie in the major leagues. If he gets a base hit here, we are told it would count as a continuation of his hitting streak, which would give him 25. The streak now ended. The previous record, 23 consecutive games by Mike Vail of the Mets in 75. Ball one.
Well, his last hitting streak was about 15 games, right? And so this will be a continuation, if he gets a hit now, of another 10 games that lapsed in between that period of time.
Right. This is the one game out of the 25 he did not have a hit. He's been to bat only once. And it's a ball and a strike. Mattingly lined out to left. After replacing Steve Balboni, he came to bat in the seventh inning. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Well, I'm sure both teams feel, well, if we got to be here, we might as well go ahead and win it.
Now a fly ball, and that will end the streak. Sheridan is there for the catch, and Mattingly's hitting streak, unless the Yankees tie it up and he should come to bat again, his hitting streak is ended. 1 out in the bottom half of the ninth.
I'm going to pause here briefly. Just seeing Don Mattingly wear number 46 and seeing anybody with 1 batting glove but not 2 batting gloves, I think is such classic just 1983 baseball.
By the way, as we said, there's not much crowd, and the crowd is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look at home plate, Yankee Stadium. Like, look at the grass is dead everywhere. This is...
Bring back fungo circles.
That's right. Fungo circles. There you go. All right, let's get back to the game here.
And now Roy Smalley. Oscar Gamble has moved out on deck. Gamble will bat for Guidry. Smalley has played the entire game, or did on the 24th, all the way at shortstop. Fly to center, single to center, and fly to center again. Ball 1.
That offset center field camera is not it.
I suppose you could have done one or two things.
It's the thing I hate the most about watching old Yankees clips.
Guidry bumped the guys over.
Could have. Quisenberry at this moment, that is including the game since July 24th through night before last when he last pitched. Quisenberry has won 5, lost 1, and saved 32 games. This is his 51st appearance. 106 innings, 98 hits.
106 innings. It's July. He's a reliever.
2 balls and a strike. The count to Roy Smalley. We might mention that Willie Wilson was in and out of this game, so was Leon Roberts, so they're not eligible. In the air to left field. And Simpson on the warning track. 2 down. Two outs in the bottom half of the ninth. The Royals are leading by a score of 5-4. And now Oscar Gamble will bat for Ron Guidry. Oscar's hitting 286.
Well, after all this time and after all the media attention and everything that's going on in the courts, it comes down to one man, Oscar Gamble. The Yankees now have 2 outs.
Look at his stance.
So good.
Ball 1.
All the drama was built up to this particular point right now.
Yep.
He gets low, Quiz gets lower.
Boils down to Gamble and Quisenberry. Gamble has hit 7 home runs this year, 22 RBIs. And that may do it. Frank White over to John Watson, and the Pine Tar game is over.
The Yankees are 3 up, 3 down here in the bottom half of the ninth inning. The final score, the Kansas City Royals 5 and the New York Yankees 4, I think.
Delivered in such a dour, serious tone.
All right, Jesse. So this is just such a fun, incredible baseball moment that stands the test of time. But this is Crafting the Call, and on Crafting the Call, it's all about the broadcaster breakdown. So whether it's that last line, whatever, like, let's break down what we've heard here.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the last line because I thought that was a very serious, described inning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very professional for a game that deserves nothing of the sort, and Billy Martin's doing his best to make it nothing of the sort.
However, if anybody got on base, look, that's the tying run, right? These two teams were in the middle of a close pennant race. So, like Billy Martin is making it a farce, but once the affidavits have been shown, it's a one-run game. It's the ninth inning. Every victory matters at this point in the season. So at a certain point, once the farce ends, and I don't know exactly when that farce ended, I think it does deserve some level of like, hey, still a game. It's on the line right now.
Well, it's Quiz, American League All-Star. And as you mentioned, he's going to throw 139 innings. He is at the top of the major leagues in appearances and games finished and saves virtually every single year for this period of time. He is one of the top back-end relievers in all of baseball. It's unfortunately, he got to the major leagues late, so he is 30 at this point in time, but the Quiz's peak was great, and they weren't touching him. So he takes care of a very business-like half inning. All the while, we're waiting for something to happen. Surely the Pine Tar bat game can't end anticlimactically.
Or maybe it does, I mean, so this was not just a sports story. This was a nationwide story to the point where even ABC News included this. So let's look back on Peter Jennings and ABC News as they reported on this story.
And finally tonight, baseball. Once upon a time, baseball was the national pastime in this country, a sport everybody could enjoy, a game so simple anyone could understand it. Well, baseball isn't so simple anymore, and litigation now seems to be America's favorite sport. So it comes as no surprise that an appeals court judge had to say play ball before the New York Yankees and the Kansas City Royals could get on again today with their notorious Pine Tar game. Here's ABC's Fred Wymore.
George Brett's home run gave Kansas City a 5-4 lead, but Yankee manager Billy Martin protested. Too much pine tar. You're right, said the ump to Billy. You're out, he said to Brett. Game over, Yankees win 4-3. But American League President Lee MacPhail overruled his men in blue, and the home run that wasn't, once again was. All that was left then was to complete the game. Sounds simple? It wasn't. The fans who were there in the beginning would have to pay even more to be there at the end. Lawsuits were filed, and the game was called off. But late this afternoon, the order came down to play ball as the teams returned once again to Yankee Stadium. And after all that, the Royals were still at bat, leading 5-4 in the ninth, just as if Billy Martin had never come out of the dugout. As the game resumed tonight at Yankee Stadium, Martin was back out on the field, this time to file his own protest. His objection registered, the game resumed. Hal McRae struck out to end the Royals inning, and then it was New York's turn. Don Mattingly flied out for the first out of the inning. Roy Smalley did the same, 1 out to go. And when Oscar Gamble grounded to second, the game was over, and nothing had changed, except this time the game was official. And after all the protests had been heard and all the arguments debated, the Royals were the winners, the Yankees the losers. And the great Pine Tar caper had finally been put to rest. Fred Wymore, ABC News, Yankee Stadium, New York.
Oh, I've got thoughts on this, Josh. But
first, I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay. So whenever there's a straight news program, national news, and everyone is watching, so you know that you're delivering to a lot of people who A, know nothing about it, and B, probably know nothing about or care nothing about baseball. So what do? And what they did was they delivered the baseball. The shot of Lee McPhail with the bat in hand is so good. The shot of the players coming in off the bus, but they turned it a little bit. And in case he had the bat, it turns into a whole ballad of this misadventure in all of our lives in the game's our national pastime, right? This is all, hey, let's see what happened at the ballpark. We took us through the events. Let's deliver the play-by-play. Let's do the highlights on the national news.
What I found most interesting was the way that Peter Jennings started off the report. It was very much kind of an indictment on baseball. He's saying that once upon a time, baseball was the national pastime, something that we could all enjoy. When people start to wonder, well, when did baseball no longer become the most popular sport? Here's a tiny little moment from 1983 where Peter Jennings is basically saying it's all about court cases now, that this is not a game that we can enjoy, which I thought was an interesting semi-editorial that Peter Jennings used in order to set up this story. I too loved, this is the bat, we're in court, here's the tickets, handwritten, $2.50 for the tickets. Just, I think that when we can look back on it now and it's just funny. Oh, the pine tar incident, my goodness. At the time, it probably wasn't funny for very many people. Probably wasn't funny for Lee McPhail. There was very few people who may have saw the humor in it, unless the humor was simply, remember when George Brett went nuts on that umpire?
Well, do you think that it was a sign to people of our litigious society? Like, great, it's pine tar, it's baseball. Baseball handles its own. When there are things that happen out there on the field, when there's a guy who goes charging in, and then they've got to grab him in a headlock, which I was frankly upset about for George Brett's account, that you've got an umpire putting a player in a headlock, but that all of this has left the field of play. And now we've got the battles in the court, and they're not going to play. They are going to play. We've got an injunction handed down that all of this is taking place in New York, and Donald Fear is getting involved because is it okay for the Royals and Yankees to play on what should be a day off? Should we bring the Royals to town? What should we do? It leaves the field of baseball. And just to step back to Fear, remember, baseball in 1981 has had a labor stoppage. And throughout the 1970s, there were, as Marvin Miller and the Major League Baseball Players Association mounted and gained power, there is a whole increasing sentiment that baseball is a business. And now we've got the players and the owner. It's so much is happening off the field with baseball at the time, taking you away from what the game is supposed to be on it. Here's the latest example. It feels very unreal that we are going to court to talk about the pine tar on a bat.
I think when you look at the two main principles in this, which is Billy Martin and George Brett, if you knew nothing about those two guys, you can look at this incident and say, this is all you need to know. Billy Martin was a genius. He was an absolute genius. He looked for every single possible way to win a game. He didn't miss anything. I believe that he had been thinking about George Brett and pine tar or somebody with pine tar for a long, long time and thought this is the perfect time to use it. But he was also didn't know when to stop. He didn't know when to stop the fight. And he kept fighting and fighting and fighting and made a mockery of it once it resumed. As you mentioned, the amount of money that cost the Yankees to go to court, to bring all the employees to the ballpark in order to sell food and tickets and all that kind of stuff. And then for George Brett, this was one of the greatest players of all time. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He had some of the most legendary moments, clutch moments. He hits this titanic home run off a future Hall of Famer himself. George Brett was also loved because of how fire he was. There was a time in a playoff game against Greg Nettles where Nettles applies a tag on him. They just start throwing punches and fighting. Neither one of them gets kicked out. They both, like, George Brett was this fiery competitor who comes running out of the dugout like a man who's possessed. This is the quintessential of who these two guys were. They were both characters. They were both legends. And this game is part of the enormous reason why these two guys are known for what they are known for.
I think there's a certain segment of the older baseball fan population that would like its managers today to be more like Billy Martin, and that would like its players today to be more like George Brett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe in 1983, that's what's wrong with baseball is look at these guys. And now there might be a sense of, man, baseball needs more characters.
I mean, it's a character in the broadcast booth and Scooter calling it all on Yankees radio.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to think about the broadcasts of it all and how the broadcasters approached it, because they're just calling the game to the baseball fans at home. They're saying, all right, here's what we've got. Let's pick up the hitting streak. Let's see if he can extend the hitting streak. Let's see what's going on. And it limited the scope, right? It took something that had turned into a circus in the big picture. And you're going, but on the other hand, if he gets a single here.
Yeah. You mentioned Phil Rizzuto. We have Yankees radio. You want to listen to Yankees radio before we end the episode?
I would love to. I would love to hear if it's a little bit less serious than a lot of what we've seen.
All right, let's find out.
All right, the Goose is on. And he relieves Dale Murray, who did another excellent job while he was in there. Murray gave up only one hit, and that was the hit to UL Washington. Now, I had started to say when I saw Billy Martin make the motion for Gossage to come on, that it brings back some nightmares when George Brett, in 1980, the year the Royals beat the Yankees in the playoffs, right here at Yankee Stadium, hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball thrown by the Gossage, 120 miles an hour into the upper deck here at Yankee Stadium. And the best fastball pitcher in baseball and just about the best fastball hitter in baseball, George Brett, what a confrontation. The set, the pitch, a swing and a drive to deep left field. And curving foul. Holy cow. Where's Bill White? Bill White is in his car on the way home, and up here getting agita and nervous and cold. Long strike. The set by Gossage. The pitch deep to right field. Holy cow, I don't believe it. Home run for George Brett. I don't believe it. That lightning could strike twice. And Billy Martin now is coming out. He wants to take a look at that bat. Well, that's a little late. I don't believe it. I told you I had nightmares about this thing. Unbelievable. Hey, they might have a point here. Thurman Munson was called out after getting a base hit because there is pine tar above. You can see the bat. Oh, no, you can't. You're not on TV. Above the trademark. And Billy Martin might have a valid point here. That's the only way the Yankees can get out of this scrape. Holy cow, I can't believe it. Brett hit that ball 9 miles. Billy pointing to the bat. Now, Thurman Munson had gotten a base hit out in Minnesota, and the manager of the Twins at that time asked the umpire to look at the bat, and they called Thurman Munson out. And Martin has a very valid argument here. And if he wins this, there will be chaos. Look at George Brett. He is getting congratulated, but there's a big huddle out there. And the umpires are going to talk, or they got to get a calibrating machine out here to calibrate this thing and see just how high the pine tar is. And there is a definite rule in the rule book that you cannot have it above a certain distance. Oh, what a huddle out there. This really... Billy Martin standing with his arms folded out there. Boy, he was quickly off that bench. Well, look who has returned. He made a U-turn on the bridge. Bill White is back. And they are about to make a decision, and this could be a momentous decision. I can't tell by the way they're walking as to who's going to win this argument.
Well, they're going to try to use the 17 inches of the bat the plate to measure the bat.
but they should measure from the far end of the plate.
Well, first of all, I don't see anything wrong with having pine tar as far as you want on that bat.
Bill White, you're right, except for the fact that you remember this.
Oh, I can't believe that.
Wait a minute,
I
Bill,
can't
wait a
believe
minute.
that.
They did that to Simon Munson in Minnesota.
Brett is upset, and I can't believe that, Phil.
Well, now, wait a minute, Bill. They did it on Thurman Munson in Minnesota. It was not as dramatic a moment as this. Thurman hit a line drive into left field, and a base hit drove in a run.
I said the same thing then. I couldn't believe that they could call Thurman out, and
Well,
I can't believe they'd call Brett out here.
Well, I tell you, there's a rule, a definite rule in the rule book that the pine tar can only be a certain height. And now they're trying to get rid of the bat. And Gaylord Perry was out there. He's going to get fined. He was in a tug of war with the umpire. Dick Hauser is furious. They are holding George Brett out there. 3 men are holding him.
Well, the game's over.
That's right. He is called out, and the Yankees win the game 4-3. But it's one of the most unbelievable endings I have ever seen. I know how you feel.
Well, I've always, if you're tamper with a bat, which I've done, if you put cork in it or put nails in it or whatever, I can see that. But pine tar more than 18 inches is not going to help you hit a baseball.
No, it's one of those ridiculous rules that they have come up with, like a hitter can't go back and get pine tar on his bat.
Well, the game's over. The Yankees won it 4-3.
Unbelievable. An unbelievable ending. And you know, look at George Brett. He is still furious, arguing with the umpires. Dick Hauser is right. You know they're going to protest this game. But there is a rule in the rule book that definitely states that you cannot put pine tar above a certain part of the bat. Now they have called it. The game is official. The Yankees have won it 4-3, and we will not hear the end of this for a long time. The final score: the Yankees 4 and the Royals 3.
Well, first, Scooter's great. I think that Bill White makes an error, and I think that the Yankees would disagree with me on the error that he makes, because, Josh, if this happened today and you've got one of the two team broadcasters saying that this is wrong, he should not be called out, this is the wrong call. When Billy Martin has schemed, he's gotten it, he's gotten the call, and it's won them the game, I think that they would be very upset with the broadcast booth. I think that there would be some internal conversations that were held saying, how could you do this? How could you say this on the air? Setting that aside, the money moment, because you and I have now seen it in video form, the money moment is George Brett leaving the dugout. Mm-hmm. And Bill chooses that moment to cut off Scooter and talk about how he doesn't think the call is right. And I just want to hear Scooter describe it.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that we listened to this radio version, because it's such a completely different contrast from the television version, right? What makes the pine tar incident is us seeing George Brett. And so I find it fascinating that they both remembered the play with Thurman Munson 5 years earlier. And so they're getting into this. And as a listener, I like that they're going back and forth. I like that Rizzuto's saying, hey, no, it's a rule. And Bill White's like, it's a dumb rule. It doesn't help you, right?
Oh, it's great.
So I love the historicalness that this other thing happened. But you're right. It takes a while before we have any idea that George Brett has lost his mind in this.
I need to hear the play-by-play of that. I need to see the description of George Brett roaring out of the dugout.
Like, Phil Rizzuto's outstanding. From the, Bill White has left. He's driving home. Oh, no, he's back. And the one point when he says, you can see it. No, you can't. You're not on TV.
Well, Phil Rizzuto is like the whole idea of having nightmares about George Brett hitting a home run. Brett is stepping into the batter's box, and Phil Rizzuto's going, oh, no. And then he hits it, but it's foul. Okay, it's a strike.
Yeah. Again, one of the things I love about crafting the call is just these time capsules, right? Of this is what baseball was like. This is what broadcasting was like back then. That it wasn't this whole, whatever I say is going to end up on social media in the next 3 minutes. A broadcaster like Bill White could take the opposite stand of his team he is saying, like, no, I don't agree with this. This does not help you. I don't think that would ever happen nowadays. And so I just think that it's a time capsule. It's informative. I think it's kind of a lesson to us too. And look, that's what Bill White thought, regardless of whether or not that's what the Yankees message wanted it to be. Bill White spoke from the heart as a former hitter who said, no, pine tar doesn't help you. This is a dumb rule. That should not be an out.
Do you remember what Bobby Mercer said?
Remind me again.
Bobby Mercer said, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Which I loved that honesty.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to figure out, okay, so they've called him out, but should they have? Here we have the former players. Phil Rizzuto is reacting like he did because he's feeling the righteous indignation. Well, they called out Thurman, so therefore they should call out George Brett, which I get that. I think if you're a Yankee fan, you remember one, you're going, okay, tables are turned. But I love Mercer sitting back or Bill White sitting back and going, the pine tar doesn't help. What are we doing here?
Yeah. So when Thurman Munson was called out in that story, Munson says he didn't know that it was a rule. George Brett has always said to this day that he did not know that it was a rule at the time. However old I was at the time, I think that 99.9% of the public would have never known that that was a rule. Even if you were to go talk to players in the clubhouse today and you were to ask them, is there a rule about how much pine tar you can use? Or even if you like reference this, I don't know how many people would say that they know. The rules have been changed in order to make sure this thing doesn't happen again. Very few people are going to put pine tar that high up on the bat. By the way, the reason why people do put pine tar up on the bat is so that they could grab more and reapply it. So they don't have to go back to the on-deck circle to get more, because you can't do that, especially with the pitch timer right now. So you reach up higher on the bat to get a little bit more so it's on your hands. That's why you would put it up there. There is something to be said for reading the rule book, knowing everything that's in there.
Oh, and Billy Martin knew it word for word.
Yeah.
I could ask you for a favor.
Okay.
When we end this episode, I would like us to end it on hearing how the Royals radio team called the end of the resumption.
We don't have that.
Oh. Only the top half of the ninth inning?
We only have the top half. So,
okay.
And this goes to show also about when it comes to radio and television, we don't have copies of everything anymore.
No.
We do not have a copy of the Royals radio as George Brett hit the home run. If it does, it's on a tape cassette that someone recorded and they don't know that they had it and they haven't shared it with anyone. We have a little bit from when the game resumed. We do not have how it ended. There's lots of things that we just don't have anymore. And even to find the clip that we did, we went to the Royals Hall of Fame. I had a copy of it, so we have like a little bit. But in 1983, we just don't have a lot of copies of these things. But thank goodness we did have the television broadcast of the Yankees that day.
Yeah, and we've got TV Yankees, we've got radio Yankees, and we've got the Royals. We've got Denny Matthews and Fred White with the top half, with that final out of the strikeout, George Frazier striking out Hal McRae. What a moment in baseball history. A regular season game, right? July 24th, 1983, and then picked up August 18th, 1983, all about a little bit of pine tar. Just a little bit too much.
Do want to give a shout out to Kurt Nelson, Senior Director, Royals Hall of Fame. That's what I was trying to spit out. He did get us some audio, and it's terrific. I loved hearing what we did hear from Denny Matthews and from Fred White. But yeah, we there's just a lot of things that have been lost.
Do you think that the overturning of the call has also shaped our perception of George Brett? So Brett has the reaction that he had, but in the end, I would say that he's validated.
Oh, yeah. Look, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area suburbs. I had numerous friends whose favorite player was George Brett. They became Royals fans and are still Royals fans to this day. One of them never lived in Kansas City. The other one was from Kansas City, but I know other people who just became huge fans of George Brett. And I think this incident was part of it. Yes, he flirted with 400. He was an MVP. He was a Hall of Famer. He was consistent year after year after year, won all these batting titles. But there was a fieriness to him that resonated with people, that people loved, that this guy went storming out of the dugout. How dare you call me out for having too much pine tar. What are you, crazy? That is the stupidest rule. And I'm not going to stand there and go, okay, I'm going to come sprinting out and lose my mind. It's one of the things that people love about George Brett.
Yes. Take us home, Josh.
For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, the voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, I am Josh Suchon, play-by-play announcer for the Albuquerque Isotopes. This has been Crafting the Call. Keep your fingers clean. Do not get any sticky things on them. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you again next time.